In this video, we're going to talk about the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages. It is related to Unit 4 of your book called Andalus. This is the index we're going to be explaining. On the first point, we will talk about the Visigoths in Hispania after the fall of the Roman Empire. And in the second point, we're going to talk about the history of Al-Andalus, explaining the chronology and the territory it occupied until its final disappearance in the year 1492. The Visigoths were a Germanic tribe that invaded the western part of the Roman Empire. They established in the territory of today's France, but very soon they were forced to move downwards towards the Iberian Peninsula, and they established their capital in the city of Toledo. One important thing to highlight about the Visigoths is that there were very often internal struggles between factions of the nobility and the monarchs in order to hold power. And it is in this historical context that we have to identify the Muslim invasion of the Iberian Peninsula. The supporters of Aquila tried to dethrone the King Rodrigo, and they demanded the help of the Muslims. In the year 711, an army led by Tariq and formed by Arabs and Berbers crossed the Strait of Gibraltar through a point called Tarifa and defeated the Visigoths at the Battle of Guadalete. The conquest of the Muslims in the Iberian Peninsula was very easy, and this can be explained because of three factors. The first one is the superior military power of the Muslims. The second factor is because the Visigoths had internal conflicts which divided them, and they were undergoing a civil war. And the third reason is because Muslims got the support of certain social groups like the Jews, who agreed to surrender in exchange to keep their own properties. By year 714, most of the Iberian Peninsula had been conquered by the Muslims. Al-Andalus was created, and it became a dependent emirate of Damascus. The capital was established in Cordoba. The history of Al-Andalus can be divided into 5 periods. The first one is the dependent emirate. The second period is the independent emirate. The third period is the Cordoba Caliphate. The fourth period is the Taifa kingdoms, and the last period is called the Kingdom of Granada. Let's start with the first one. The dependent emirate stretches from year 711 to the year 759. It is important to highlight that in the year 750, the Abbasids defeated the last Umayyad Caliph in Damascus, and they killed all members of the Umayyad dynasty except one person, Abdurrahman I. He managed to escape and sought protection in the north of Africa. In this year 759, he proclaimed himself Emir of Cordoba. This is when the independent emirate begins. It was politically independent but still recognized the religious authority of the Caliph in Baghdad. In year 929, Abdurrahman III proclaims himself Caliph of Cordoba. This is a moment of decline of the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, but this is the period of known as the Golden Age of Al-Andalus. It lasts until the year 1031, when the Caliphate is going to be disintegrated into 28 independent kingdoms called Taifas. The Taifas were very weak, and this fact was exploited by the Christians, who took advantage of it in order to advance in their process of the reconquest. At first, Christians received tributes, that is, money, from these Taifas, and these tributes were called parias. These parias guarantee a peaceful coexistence of these kingdoms with Christians and Taifa kingdoms. But in the year 1085, the Christians led by Alfonso VI conquered Toledo, and some Taifa kings became very threatened by this fact, and they asked for help from the Almoravids, who were a nomadic Berber tribe from the north of Africa. In year 1086, the Almoravids defeated the Christians at the Battle of Sagrajas. The battles between Christians and Muslims continued, and afterwards the Almohad dynasty came to the Iberian Peninsula and replaced the Almoravids. In the year 1147, the Almohads reunited again all the Al-Andalus. This year 1212 becomes a turning point in the history of the Christian expansion, because it is the first time that all Christian kings joined together in a crusade to defeat the Almohads at the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. This victory allowed Christians to enter into the rich Guadalquivir Valley, taking control of the most important cities in Andalusia like Jaén, Córdoba, and Sevilla. This takes us directly into the last period of Al-Andalus, called the Kingdom of Granada. It was ruled by the Nasrid dynasty, which was the last Muslim dynasty in the Iberian Peninsula. It lasted for over 200 years, from 1238 to 1492, maybe because of two reasons. The first one is because they were supported by some Muslims from the north of Africa, but also because they continued to pay tributes, that is, parias, to the kings of Castilla. The Kingdom of Granada included not only the province of Granada, but also the territories of Malaga and Almeria. It is going to disappear in the year 1492 when the Catholic monarchs Isabel and Fernando decides to conquer the city of Granada. The last king, Boabdil, handed the keys of the city, and it marks the end of the Muslim presence in the Iberian Peninsula.